In one form or another, magical beliefs and rituals have always found a place in Greek tradition, although it must be said that magic as a distinct and easily recognizable category, one no longer readily accepted by modern scholarship. For the sake of this video, however, while acknowledging the considerable debate on the topic, it may be understood in the present context to indicate that the end of a continuously large, undifferentiated spectrum of religious thought and behavior deemed unacceptable to the dominant culture at any given period because of the purposes for which it is employed, because of the methods and the powers it is believed to use, and because of the assumptions it makes about the nature of the cosmos. The ancient Greek religious tradition included a vast array of magical techniques through which it is believed that people could attain material enrichment and success, could discover hidden information, or can cause those they wanted to love them and those they hated to suffer or die. It seems likely that most people's religious beliefs and practices contained much that they may be categorized at the magical end of the spectrum. In an atmosphere of general uncertainty, insecurity, and helplessness, magic claimed to provide a method that worked directly and relatively, dependably, to solve all the problems, difficulties, and unfulfilled aspirations of everyday life. Firm evidence of belief in magical power and practice goes back to the earliest Greek literature, although this undoubtedly represents a far older tradition in prehistory. Circe, in Homer's Odyssey, for example, knows how to summon spirits of the dead and uses magic rituals to transform humans into animals, while in the myth, Medea possessed the power of the evil eye and can cause all manner of harm by magical means. Important references to magical practices and beliefs are found in literature from the entire span of the ancient Greek culture. For example, in Hesiod, Plato, Aristotle, Theocritus, Apollonius of Rhodes, Plutarch, Lucian, Plotinus, and Iamblichus. Knowledge derived from this material is supplemented by archaeological artifacts, and particularly curse tablets, figurines, and amulet gemstones. The most detailed information concerning magic in the older Hellenic tradition comes from the Greek magical papyri from Egypt and dates between the 2nd century BCE to the 5th century. This very rich collection of material demonstrates clearly that the Greek tradition of magic cannot be taken in isolation from the Egyptians, Jews, and other Eastern traditions, and confirms that the magic was practiced at many levels, from villages to courts, and by practitioners ranging from itinerant to highly institutionalized individuals. The magic revealed by these sources is primarily concerned with using the supernatural forces believed to control and influence the world in which humans exist, whether these are gods and goddesses, intermediary powers, such as angels, demons, deacons, spirits of the dead, and those associated with nature, such as solar and astral powers, feature prominently while in the papyri. With their particularly cultural context, the Jewish god Ya'al is the most frequently named, but in general, the forces of the underworld, notably Hecate, were undoubtedly those thought most helpful and potent. Magical practice, ranging from the crude and casual to elaborate and formal, was thought to be empowered in almost all cases by a combination of speech and ritual action. Although sometimes no more than vestigial at a low level, these words and actions, which are often involved overt symbolic linkage to desired outcome, were underpinned at the most complex end of the scale by a vast system of knowledge of numerous levels of often highly individualized supernatural powers, and of the names, words, and practices to make the responsive or submissive. It was vital to know all natural materials, whether animal, vegetable, or mineral, thought to be particularly favorable or potent in relation to purposes of magic in hand and either sympathetic or antipathetic to the powers being used. Important too was knowledge of correct timing, generally determined by complicated astrological lore and location. For example, the crossroads, or a place of a violent death. Just as most people today, however, use modern technology with almost no knowledge of the underlying science behind it, so most of the employed magical techniques in the ancient world had no real understanding of their formal and complex intellectual basis. Magical practice in the Greek tradition may be said to fall into one of three general categories: protection, manipulation, and the discovery of normally hidden knowledge. For protection, amulets were most commonly used. These operated at all levels, from individual and communal, and were either worn on the body or placed strategically on the doorpost of a house, for example, or on a city gate. All manner of materials were used, but all were thought to have some special, whether physical or symbolic. This might be increased by combining elements, by adding written formulae, and by preparing them at the proper time and place. Best known among enormous range of popular techniques of magical manipulation is the use of a curse tablet, or a voodoo doll. In the former case, magic formula most often inscribed on a lead tablet that was then associated with the enforcing powers by, for example, being inserted in a tomb or a burial at crossroads. The tablet was also frequently bound or fixed symbolically during the ritual, perhaps being tied with elaborately knotted thread or pierced with a nail. Practices involving magical figurines were generally similar, although wax or clay might be used, and rituals of piercing and binding were often more complicated. Symbolic melting or severing of the image might occur, and it might be associated with the victim by using personal materials and by inscribing personal names on specific body parts. In both cases, ritual action was carefully timed and located, and was accompanied by equally elaborate verbal elements. Such practices were believed to cause general loss of performance, overwhelming lust, or even death. These effects might extend not only to human but to livestock and crops as well. Other manipulatory techniques involving summoning and the compelling supernatural powers or spirits in their more elaborate forms, complex rituals of invocation took place, and the interaction with the powers might be thought to occur in a trance state or by means of visions seen, perhaps in a shining surface of a vessel of water or a mirror. The latter practices relate closely to some use for determining hidden knowledge. Also, related to these manipulatory techniques are the late antique rites of theurgy, talked about by Neoplatonists like Iamblichus. This is a form of divination. Divination, the supposed ability to acquire knowledge of the future or other normally inaccessible matters by supernatural means has always found a place in the Greek tradition from antiquity to the present day. But while some forms have enjoyed cultural approval, others have been condemned.